Welcome to another episode of Between Two Dots, where we interview incredible people living intentional lives. This week, we have the distinct pleasure of interviewing Prateek Sodhi. He's got an insane story, one that has a ton of twists and turns. And I had the pleasure of meeting him at an event not too long ago, but Gilbert knows him quite well. And after chatting with him, I am so impressed by this person's ingenuity and ability to adapt to any situation and actually build something of substance while enduring many of life's insane challenges. Take a listen. I think you'll enjoy it.
Prateek, it's great to have you on the podcast. I know we've chatted about this, so it was great that you were able to accommodate today's time. Where are you taking the podcast from?
From Calgary, right next to you. I mean, probably about 50 feet away from you.
Yeah. For the listeners, we actually are in the same office space, so that's why we're so close in terms of this recording.
Absolutely. Pleasure to be here.
Awesome. Well, it's a bright, sunny day in Calgary right now. Obviously, you call Calgary home today. Has that always been the case? Where did you grow up? How did you grow up?
No, not at all. I grew up in New Delhi, India, city of almost, I would say, with the metropolitan population included, about 50 million people. Well, they were not 50 million back when I grew up over there, but it's of course growing rapidly over there. So crazy different environment that I grew up in. Yeah, I sometimes miss it. So, but then I like the peace of living in a smaller city with a lot of expansive area and yeah, I've experienced both, very crazy cities, but also like cities that are still big in the Canadian context, but not as big when you really compare it against the metropolitans of the world.
So when you grew up in New Delhi. Did you have any brothers or sisters?
Yeah, so about my family, yes, I do have a younger brother, and my parents passed away in 2016, and that was some due to some accident, and it was horrible time during that time. I started my MBA as well. Was just got into U of A's MBA program in the fall of 2016, and again a couple of months later is when I found out that this was what was going on around that time, and had to make some trips, of course, to for the funeral ceremony. And my younger brother, between us, like we have about 8.5 years of age difference, so he's 8.5 years younger than me, and it was very difficult time for me to like really not know what's going to happen next for him, because of course I have my life in Canada, but he just had his life pretty much uprooted right from there, right? Like he was living with my parents, and that tough time to really like the only thing that I could actually think about instead of grieving, and my way of grieving was that, hey, let's pack our bags and we're just gonna hit the mountains and go on a crazy hike for multi-day hike, and that's what we did with a group, and that was my way of like grieving, just being close to the nature.
Yeah, sorry to hear that.
That's very, very, very sad. And yeah, pretty shocking, I can imagine.
Yeah, it was shocking to the point where I, used to be fearful of like taking phone calls that had the extension code +91. And it's like, I know that this call is coming from India, and literally just like, what now? To the point, like when you get this streak of bad news coming your way every time, and you just sort of like develop that phobia pretty much, and that's what was going on during that time. But the way that I really lead my life is that, I always think forward, and that's the way that I have always been, that, I don't really like to reflect so much in the past, and always have some sort of like charted a path forward, and this is what I needed to do during that time, figured it out in my own head, and that was how I stumbled on this possibility of like going on a hike as well. And that turned out to be a really good experience to connect with my brother, because I haven't had a chance. I left India when I was 22. My brother and I, because of this age gap and some difficulties growing up and so on, he grew up with my grandparents, so I haven't had much of a time bonding with him, getting to know him. And this was around that time that I actually got a chance to, hey, let's do this hike and we'll get to know each other and connect over there.
Yeah.
Got so many healing properties, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. Whereabouts did you guys go for your hike?
So we went to the east part of India in the state called West Bengal. We flew to can't really like tell you the name of the city right now. It was a small tier 2 city, and then we took a bus ride up to a very popular town called Darjeeling, where a lot of like tea comes out of that place. They're popular for the tea gardens over there, and from that was our base, and that's where we started hiking. It took us about 4 days. We were along the border of India and Nepal all along the way towards the hike, towards our ascent, and yeah, it was a great experience. Like one night we were camping in Nepal, the other night we were camping in India. It's just like, it felt pretty nice. And it's the way people of mountain do in that region, like they live a pretty hard life over there because there's no access to electricity, there's no access to hot water, there's no access to, and it's cold, like really cold. So, so yeah, it was a great experience going through that adversity, pushing ourselves, struggling, and going through that pain in the body while the mind is also in the pain.
Had you and your brother done a lot of hiking previously? Because that, like a
Yes.
multi-day hike seems a little intense to jump in like feet first if you haven't done it before, right?
Yeah, well, that's why we did it with a group. So that totally helped in terms of like, not making those rookie mistakes. But I wouldn't really call myself any expert in hiking, but done fair bit of hiking around Canada, a little bit in India, just for the pilgrimages. Like, and growing up in India, you just grow up in a culture where even if you do not believe in the religion that you believe in, there's just so much influence and power with the way that the entire world is moving there right around you, that pushes you to like start questioning things but also start believing in certain ideas with notions that you may scoff at, given the knowledge that you attain now, and you look back and be like, oh, what was I thinking at that time, kind of situation. But when you're growing up, you're going through these pilgrimage because your parents are into it, and they're taking you along the ride. And so that was my exposure to hiking, other than, of course, doing a lot of hikes in Alberta here. Um, but my brother, he's done a lot of those pilgrimage hikes as well. Like he did a crazy walk of like 400 kilometers. It goes on for 2.5 days. And so he had some exposure to like extraneous activities where he's pushing his body too. So yeah, it was I wouldn't really call that it was that crazy on our bodies, to be honest. Like it was a decent 4 day ascent, but yeah, we had a great time. Yeah.
Yeah. Just backing up a little bit,
Sure.
what what brought you to Canada? And you mentioned that you stayed in India till you were the age of 22. What did you do as it relates to like I'm not too familiar with the schooling system. You mentioned that you did your MBA in the University of Alberta, but you must have done
Yeah.
something prior to that. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I came to Canada in 2011 and I completed my undergrad in hospitality business administration in India. The way that the schooling system works is exactly like how it is over here. You go through high school, you complete your grade 12, and then you're given some post-secondary education options, right? Depending on your stream of interest. You have to make certain decisions in grade 11 in India. You cannot really like, if you want to be an engineer, you have to like take certain courses in your grade 11 and complete the grade 12. And grade 12 is a pretty key component. And so is grade 10, which is like a national exam that the entire school board, imagine like, millions of students appearing for an exam at the same time. The great thing about India is that the entire country runs on the same time zone. So if it is 10 a.m. is the exam time, even though naturally we are like 3,000 miles away in terms of distance, but the same student completely in a remote area in India is actually going doing the same exam at the same time, right? So And they call it nationals. And of course, it's a very competitive environment that, you need to compete. You need to hustle in India to be able to because of the amount and the quantum of people over there that you need to be able to push a lot of people behind to be able to get those very limited spots in the key universities that are very well recorded in India. So that's how it goes. You complete your grade 10, you pick your options, then you complete your grade 12, and then you have some post-secondary education options available. And then again, more competitive exams. So I got into merchant navy, and that was sort of something that I really always believed in. And growing up in a family where my mother's parents and my dad's parents were mainly in defense, and they've been, their entire history has been working for the defense of India. And so my mother had this fantasy that, I want to see you as an officer. And although I never believed in that concept because I didn't really get so much involved into it, but she had that fantasy that, hey, I wish you could get into army because my husband is now, so my dad was not. He was a businessman. And and yeah, so I gave a shot at it, and I appeared for the Air Force exam, and the way that they do it over there is pretty competitive as well. You got to compete for 5 days, and there are some certain screening criteria that you clear on day one. And then they let you stay on for the rest of the 4 days where they take you on really psychological, there was one interview that I did, which there's literally one chair in the room. There are tons of cameras out there. And there's this psychologist guy who's asking me questions like the way that you guys are asking, right? Hey, tell me everything that happened in your life since you were age 12. And then off you go, very limited questions. And then of course they're asking very pointed questions on what my opinion is about certain things. But that was great experience just to experience it. I didn't really pick that path for my life that I want to join defense forces. I cleared it. I proved it to my mother that I'm capable, that, hey, the thing that you most revered, I've cleared it. I'm capable enough to be able to uh, be given this opportunity to be part of Indian Armed Forces, but I'm not going to do it. So I decided that I'm going to be doing some nautical science, marine engineering side of things, and I joined over there after my grade 12, and I didn't like it, so I moved out of there within the first 2 weeks. And to not be able to waste that entire year, I decided that, I'm just gonna appear for this competitive exam that would get me into business, and that's what happened. So I initially did not have um, a full intent of doing this. Why I was thinking I'd still want to be an engineer, and I want to get into IITs which is the most revered sort of educational institution in India in engineering. And but the moment that I got there, I started liking it, right? So I was like, well, I'm not going to leave it anymore. And you don't have time. You have to really study quite a lot to be able to compete those competitive exams. So yeah, I started liking what I was doing. So I completed my undergrad over there, which was 3 years. That's the difference again in Indian education system, that the um, undergrad degrees are 3 years instead of 4 years. Engineering is still 4 years, but that's essentially the difference, the core difference. After that, I worked in hotels. Um, One interesting thing I want to definitely share is that India does not have the culture of part-time work. So, growing up, your family sort of takes care of you, even though you're still an undergrad student, because the way that the workforce is developed, there are no opportunities for students to be part of some economic contribution. And I was one of the few ones that sort of created these opportunities during my time in my undergrad. I, reached out to a lot of event management companies, and they were like, hey, we need people who can be presentable, who can speak really well. And, we're doing a lot of corporate events, and all your job is to just promote the products that these corporates want to promote. And you'll get paid your daily wages and so on. I was like, that's great. At least, there's some money to be made over here. And quickly realized that they were always short of staff. And then I started calling other event management companies, and they were always short of staff as well. And then the business side of me started ringing a bell that, hey, I have access to a lot of talent in my undergrad university, and these people need that talent. I should supply this talent. And that's what I started sort of like thinking into.
So you started like your own small business essentially, like a
Yeah.
recruitment business or what? Yeah.
Yeah, recruitment business while doing my undergrad, made decent amount of money. Then yeah, got into hotel sales for the first 2 years after doing that, and I loved it. Enjoyed a lot. Like after doing hospitality business administration, there are specific areas that you can focus in. Sales is not one of those areas that you study in or focus in, but somehow I found my way into working for hotel sales, and that was one of the best jobs that I could have had after completing that undergrad degree, and enjoyed it while meeting a lot of folks from Canada and the US. And those were my customers and clients during that time, and learning a lot about Western culture, and decided that, I still want to do my MBA, and I want to continue exposing myself to more challenges. And that's how I decided that I'll just come to Canada, and that's how it happened. So very long-winded answer to your question, but we are here now.
Yeah.
Wild,
Did
yeah.
did you consider anywhere else as besides Canada, or you just knew Canada was kind of the place to
Uh,
come?
no, well, I did not have much support from my family in terms of funding that you need to be able to like study here in a foreign country. And these were all the savings that I had just from the 2 years of working that I did in after graduating from my undergrad. And Canada was the most affordable option at that time. There were other options, of course. You could have gone to Australia and New Zealand, but I just wanted to be close to the US, to be honest. Yeah. And US was just not possible for me. Like the out of state tuition over there is just bonkers. So
So in India, so before you came to Canada, you were in New Delhi the entire time, like university, all that was there, and then your work experience was
uh
in New Delhi too.
no, my university was in a small city called Chandigarh. Small in terms of India, but not so small when we compare.
Like huge.
Yeah. Yeah, so I spent some time there for 3 years over there, and yeah, that was my first time out of Delhi, to be honest. So I really enjoyed my time up there, and yeah, yeah, undergrad in a different city, no parent supervision, so it's perfect.
For you, like you're out there, you're hustling, you start a business based on a need that you find throughout your own, search for different jobs or whatever as well too. So that's pretty cool. When you were running your business, were you actually like going to events then as well too, or you were just kind of honing in on your skills and making those connections? And maybe like how does that work with like the recruitment business? Were you just taking a cut, or was it like how does that business work?
Yeah, a bit of an informal management, of course. I was not really using any much of tech that time, but because we, like it's all just done on texting and informal groups that, hey, I'm just managing it on an Excel sheet, and hey, this is where the scheduling needs to happen and so on. And yeah, taking a cut, but of course attending some events as well, because it was enjoyable, to be honest, like to learn a lot and be part of. But I had the option of choosing which events do I want to really go myself. Yeah.
And I love that as well too. So and this is great as well because what other business are you in that you're going to meet that many foreign internationals that you can start to like build some of those connections, and when you take away some of the stress of financing because you have your business, you can kind of just be in this networking chilled out zone and yeah, kind of enjoy that.
Yeah, yeah, it was a great time. Yeah.
But you decide so your goal is always to go to the States, as you mentioned, right?
Mhm.
Was it just that much easier in Canada? Like you said, it was cheaper, but like, what was the process like? Because I've heard from many people that have been on either on the podcast or that we've met, it is typically about 2 or 3 times more expensive as an international student to take any courses in another country. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. Yeah. And see, this was 2011, so it was still not as crazy expensive how it is over here, right? Like, now when we're comparing the international student education costs, it's bonkers. So like back then it
Yeah.
was still manageable, right? So I paid about, let's say, for if Canadian is paying, let's say, 2 grand for one term, I was maybe like paying 4.5 to 5. So it was
Mm,
not that crazy. Now it's like bonkers. Like we're talking about at least 4x, 5x of that cost. So yes, it was cheaper, but also yes, easier as well. There was another reason why, like I convinced two of my other friends to join me as well. And although they didn't take the same program and so on, but they joined and we decided to come together, and we were together in our undergrad as well. And of course, we worked in different places after undergrad, but this was our way to like sort of get back together and live in the same city and have this same experience, living in a completely different new country. Yeah.
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Imagine moving with two of like my good buds across the world and start that. That's a really smart like hack as well too. Because if you go somewhere and you're brand new and you don't have anybody to either feel comfortable or kind of have that semblance of home, it's like I can imagine it'd be super difficult, right? But you have two of your best buds and you guys are kind of navigating it together. That must have been a pretty cool experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there was a lot of drama too, so I'll spare you that.
No,
Yeah.
let's get into it.
No, well, I was not
What
involved in
kind
the
of
drama.
things?
I'm not a person who creates drama, but there was drama involved in there. So I charted my own pathway and decided that, I'm just gonna, well, we're still friends, to be honest. Like, one of my friends is in Toronto. The other guy decided, I convinced him to move to Alberta because, again, cost of owning a house over here is significantly better than in Toronto, and he made that move as well. Of course, there was some help from his wife, and he's in Edmonton. I spent a lot of time in Edmonton. So moving forward in my life story, to be honest, like I completed that program in Canada around 2012. I got into Fairmont Leadership Development Program as well, and that's what I spent a lot of time doing. Right, that's how I got exposed to Alberta. Uh, while I was staying in Toronto, like people would tell me stories about Alberta, like it's so cold over there that you don't want to go go there ever. And I just like it's a Google search. You can just literally search, and somehow just people stop just completely believe in the stereotypes and don't even do that. And I looked at the photos of my first sort of place where I needed to do this development program rotation was in Jasper Park Lodge, and man, like I just searched Jasper Park Lodge and it's beautiful, right? So I was really excited to be there. I spent a summer in Jasper Park Lodge, then went back to Toronto, did a term over there in Royal York Hotel, then moved back to Banff and did a term at the Banff Springs Hotel as well.
Oh, cool. Yeah. I mean, those are certainly iconic spots, and I've heard good things, even though I'm not directly in the hospitality industry, but the training program I'm sure was phenomenal, just given the structuring and their presence globally, right?
Yeah. No, those were good times. Now, companies acquired by Accor Hotels, which is a French hotel group. And back then, it used to be owned by the sovereign fund of Saudi Arabia. And so times were different, and they were a little bit more liberal in a lot of ways. Not anymore. Now it's like cut to the dollar and pennies. That's what it is.
How it goes, right?
Yeah,
Kind of
exactly.
the culture kind of shifts and it becomes about dollars and cents. Um, what was your goal like when you were doing hospitality? Did you have an end goal when you were doing some of these jobs?
Yeah, so I had no idea. Like as I said, like I always wanted to be an engineer and was a fairly technical person, and that is essentially why it took me back into a very technical work that I'm doing right now. And before this as well was like I learned a lot about hospitality, and it appealed to me just the way that the hotel business sort of operates, and mainly the sales and marketing function of it all. My goal was to like really just still continue getting into the corporate business side of things of building hotels, right? Like the dream job, if I can really recall, uh, would have been like I looked into the specific. There's a company that's sort of like they're consultants, right? So let's say if you want to start a hotel and they are the ones that you can consult with, who would do the land validation, that, these are the market validation that you're doing. They'll tell you exactly this is where you should be building a new property. And how do you like do a soft open of a hotel? How do you then really like push the word out about the hotel? And then how do you make these decisions on technology? How big of a plan do you want, and so on? So it's that was a job that I was really gunning for, that if I could actually do that and just be involved in opening new hotels all around the world, that would be so cool. And and that's exactly why I completed this leadership development program at Fairmont Hotels as well. That gave me a little bit of a push. But then again, it's something pretty rare. Most companies sort of like already, have their own consultants laid out, and yeah, it didn't work. To be honest, like I fell in love in Banff. And during my last term, before I could actually continue my career in hotels, I fell in love with the woman over there, and she is my wife. And that was in 2013, and she is from Edmonton. And yeah, I decided to follow her in Edmonton, and that changed my life, right? Changed the direction that I was going for. And Edmonton was not in my cards at all. Like I had no idea about Edmonton. Only when I was spending time in Jasper was like the only thing that I heard was, oh, Edmonton is Deadmonton. And I went to West Edmonton Mall for a little trip, and that's all I knew about Edmonton at that time. And then, of course, falling in love with Monica. She educating me about Edmonton, doing a couple of trips over there. Of course, I like the city and spent a lot of time. And recently only moved to Calgary. It's only been 18 months since I moved to Calgary. So we can pretty much say that I've spent a very significant portion of my life in Edmonton now.
So what's your opinion on Edmonton now, having spent that time?
So my opinion is that it's a great city if you have a solid group. But if you are new to the place, then I don't think that you're going to be able to like, really appreciate what it offers. So you need to know people to be able to like really, really see the beauty of the city. Um, being a single person over there, I can't really think that it'll be an enjoyable experience.
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah, I love Calgary, to be honest, right? There's a reason why we decided to come over here, which was, we'll get to it, I guess, in our story, but this was because of building Finofo. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I guess so. You're in Edmonton. You've completed your MBA. And then what happens next? Where do you go from there?
Yeah, so I'm in Edmonton, and I am in need of a new job, and I decide to apply for finance related roles, and get lucky to be able to get a job with TD Direct Investing. And the role was mainly training financial advisors and financial representatives about the direct investing channel of the bank. And I was always very much involved in personal trading myself. So that sort of like helped me get this position. I impressed the interviewers over there. They gave me a chance. And my finance journey sort of like began. And I quickly realized that, I'll need more education. So I did not complete any MBA, by the way. Like that education program was not MBA. So that was a time when I decided that, I'll apply for an MBA in finance at U of A. And I started doing that as a part-time. So I would attend courses from 6 to 9, 2 days or 3 days a week. And yeah, it was great. Like I pushed myself to the point where, and I was in a fortunate position also that I would learn something new that I had an opportunity to actually implement the next day in my work. And that really amplified the way that I could learn over there. So I didn't really take any easy courses. I pushed myself to take hardest finance courses that the MBA can offer, and yeah, that really worked out in my favor. So I completed my MBA. I moved on from TD to working for an institutional trading firm where I was managing currency exposures for mid-market CFOs. And that's where I learned about FX markets, and that's where I learned about the the deficiencies and of what the pain points actually look like and how the industry is structured, right? So it works. This is one of the last frontiers, in my opinion, that's still like dominated by manual work, right? It's manual email exchanges. This is how data is exchanged. This is how decisions are made in terms of FX hedging and risk management. And my job was to assess risk for CFOs, make them understand, hey, if currency would go in a specific direction against your business, then you're exposed this much, and here there are financial solutions to help you protect that, and you could we will implement and execute those strategies for you. While doing that, that's where the idea started like forming, that what if there was a software to do this, right? And people believe that there could be a software, but because when you spend so much time in that echo chamber or bubble that you're building in, and the way that the industry is set up is that technology is not really given precedence, because you sort of like believe that it's even right now when you ask about FX is such a black box, right? Like, what are you talking about? Is the direct code, indirect code, and tons of terminologies and jargons that even CFOs sort of like trip up, really knowing like, how is FX, how do FX markets really operate? So that I saw an opportunity to build something in there, and it was started off as an intellectual project that I just reached out to one of my mutual friends through my wife, and they had spent an exchange semester together back in 2012 and got in touch. They attended a reunion in 2015 with them. So I was always in touch with Charles, and Charles is my co-founder for Finofo. And that's when we, around 2022 is when we decided that we'll start Finofo.
Sounds like an incredible journey, just to not only change gears completely, but go through your finance journey, and then kind of not only just impress the people with your own business acumen and kind of what you've already done, and then learning how to job and finding this need. That's a very cool journey, and you can tell from like your background and kind of the businesses that you've created in the past, like you have the knack for finding some of these opportunities. And then what, many people have ideas, but the ability to actually execute, many people don't have that. So the fact that you actually got it off the ground, found the resources, found a co-founder, is pretty impressive, right? So kudos to that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and like once you decided to start this business, what happens next? Like, was Charles in Calgary at the time as well too, or where was he? And like, who was your first customer?
Yeah, no. So we started this around mid 2022 is when, we were still working our regular jobs, full-time jobs. So just before Finofo, I was part of AEC. This is Alberta Enterprise Corporation. My job was to invest province's capital into different VC funds. So evaluating different VC funds and opportunities available to us in terms of dedicating our funds to achieve the mandate of not only generating returns, but also making sure that the startup ecosystem of Alberta get this leverage of venture capital. And again, back when I joined AEC, the numbers were, let's say, in a given year, Alberta would attract maybe, let's say, $250 million worth of capital, right, in venture, and which was in 2017, I saw a stat, I think it was around $80 million. And just last year alone, in 2024, Alberta attracted somewhere close to about $800 million, right? So that was the entire thesis of Alberta Enterprise Corporation, that they didn't want to invest money directly into startups. They wanted to invest in venture capital funds as LPs, so that then the other investors could also look into Alberta-related companies, because the only sort of key requirement for Alberta Enterprise Corporation to invest in these funds was that they will need to hire someone on the ground in Alberta to be able to look at the local deal flow. And that was a brilliant strategy, in my opinion, because that allowed people to, because when you hire someone locally, you're not going to avoid them to look and build build some rapport locally inside Alberta. So they'll start looking at the local startup opportunities that are available for the money to be deployed over there. And that's how you sort of multiply. If you invest 10 million, there are other LPs that are coming in. If it is a fund size of $150 million, there's another $140 million that can still be deployed. Of course, not all of that is going to go into Alberta, but you get the gist, right? That some of it could potentially be there in terms of multiplying that effort. That's what I did. And then in terms of Finofo, Yeah. So Charles was actually in Montreal. He is, as he likes to call himself, 16th generation Quebecois. Uh, and that's true. They were one of the first few families who actually settled in Quebec, and yeah, he was still in Montreal over there, and we were working remotely when we were thinking about ideating Finofo, and a lot of series of events happened. Although I spent a lot of time in venture capital, it was not easy for me to raise capital for a pre-seed round. Although that's how I thought about it. I was, I'm just gonna reach out to VCs and they'll be impressed, and potentially the round would be done in no time. But I was given a good harsh reality check because of the markets as well, to be honest. In 2022, you're talking about end of 2022, and this is when Nasdaq is going down 5% like on a given day, and no one is like interested. Private capital is completely shored up, and they're not deploying it anymore. And the VC funds are saying, well, we're not really deploying any capital at this point in time. We're just watching the markets. So we had a lot of leads which didn't go through in our way, and somehow got lucky. Like I reached out to a partner at A16Z who like literally wrote a Twitter thread about how she got the job by sending a cold email to A16Z's partner. And here she is, this is, and then sort of like the key takeaway from the thread was that, you know, be brave out there, send a cold email or something. So I just like literally sent a cold DM on Twitter to her. It was like, taking a leaf out of your book. And
Nice.
and um here, very very brief, like, boring business, this is what we want to do and blah blah blah, and here you go, here's the pitch. And she loved it. Like, she was like, here's my email, can you send me the deck? And I sent the deck. So she introduced me to two partners from A16Z and Recent Harvest. And I met Joe Schmidt from Andreessen Horowitz, and he loved meeting with me. And then he brought on two other partners from his team for the second meeting, and that meeting really went really well as well. We learned quite a lot. But then again, we knew like right from the get-go that we're too small for a decent harvest. Like, we're literally three
Hmm.
people right now and raising a pre-seed round of $1.5 million, and that's just not going to be enough for them because they need to deploy a lot of money. And this is well, it's good on them that they're actually spending a lot of time looking at this local deal flow. But what he did, though, they didn't invest. What they did was they Joe actually introduced me to 20 other different VC funds, which were
Wow.
sort of like the downstream funds, as you want to call them, right? That would invest at this stage. And of course, when Andreessen Horowitz firm is sending like these introductory emails, of course, everyone wants to meet you because they sort of get some guarantee that you will be able to impress someone at Andreessen Horowitz. That it's not really any guarantee that they'll invest again at a later stage, but still gives you some credibility. So that's what happened. We found our lead through these introductions, and yeah, we closed around in January of 2023. Then got to work, started building the product, and released the product in about July of 2023. And since then, it's just been a crazy journey, right? So the first version that was released was like, yeah, it was difficult to sell, but we got decent traction right off the bat just because of my network, but also the coverage that we got from TechCrunch about a round, and that brought some first few customers from. But from that point on, like, the product, I would probably feel shameful just like even looking looking back and opening that product. If that version was available right now, I would love to show it, but that was horrible. But we improved. Now it's like, we pretty much can confidently say that we are the only fintech that's operating, that can onboard businesses in Canada but also in the US. And to give a little bit of context around what we do at Finofo. Finofo is a finance automation platform which automates payments for payables and receivables for businesses. So if you are a business that's sending a lot of payments to your suppliers or receiving money from your international customers, there are very limited options when you sort of like only work with your banks. And we we work with your ERP systems, we connect with it, so we cut down the time. So a process that used to take, let's say, building a multi-currency batch of sending vendor payments that used to take, people would be using their bank or a broker or another possible service provider, but everything is like so segregated and disjointed that it would take them a lot of time and a lot of manual entry to really run a batch of, let's say, 200 payments. Now that process is reduced from hours that people would spend to mere minutes. And the payments are routed using the most efficient payment rail, so a local payment method in the country that you're sending payment to. So it reduces the cost, it makes your payments faster, and everything gets synced to your ERP, so it reduces the time it takes for manual bookkeeping and closing the books and reconciliation as well. On the receiving side, we allow local accounts in different jurisdictions for businesses to be able to have a US dollar account domiciled in the US for a Canadian entity without needing any US entity. So you could actually just literally bank like as if you were a US business, although you have no US entity there. So that's the kind of technology that we've been able to bring out through Finofo, and we're still building. This is just the beginning for us.
Well, I think that was super impressive in the sense that you guys were able to raise that seed round without like the MVP like developed, right? So like you guys had a team obviously, and the idea and the concept. What do you think it was that impressed Anderson Horowitz that eventually led to those introductions downstream?
I think so it was timely. So of course, everything could be really relayed back at this stage while we were raising, like everything is dependent on the team, right? So the people matter quite a lot because product changes. And if I were to show you the pitch that we delivered to Andreessen to the product that we have right now, it's a completely different pivot. And we had to pivot based on the business realities and so on. So at that stage, it's mostly about people, but it's also about, the way that venture capital funds really operate, because I've seen the other side, right? So I've been given pitches by venture capital funds to take Province's capital. So I've literally heard about 100 pitches, and the way that it works is that they need to work in specific swim lanes and thesis that they develop. And when the thesis is developed, there are certain areas. Right now, you're talking about AI quite a lot, right? So if you're doing something that's credible in utilizing AI, there are a lot of funds out there that are solely focused on only finding opportunities in AI. And there's a reason, like at this stage that we were looking for capital, you don't have to really have any business. All you need to do is to have a very fearless idea, and credibility in yourself that you'll be able to execute on that idea, right? Because that's what matters. So, yeah, I personally, I can read the email that I got from those guys. It was a rejection email, but it was really great. Like, that gave me some respect for the US VCs. The way that they work is completely different. Like, we've had similar conversations with Canadian VCs before, but like you'll see that in terms of like how professional these US VCs are, the way that they think about deal flow. It's a no, but it's not a no forever. So they need to develop that relationship really well. And they need to also mention that, of course, multi-stage firm like Andreessen Horowitz, they don't just invest in seed stage, right? They also invest in series A, B, C, D, E, F, G, whatever. They can give you $500 million if you really need that much capital, because the fund sizes are just increasing every year as they deploy more. So
yeah, that's cool.
Roadmap now, like you guys have been at it for a couple of years, and I see from your pictures on your website you've grown your team. Are you in the midst of another round, or like how's that going for you
yeah,
guys?
great that you brought it up. So it's the news is still, well, on today, May 20th, while we're recording. The news is still under embargo, but yes, we raised our round, which is our next sort of like milestone to be able to like get some fresh powder so we can deploy, because we're in the growth stage right now. Like, product is out there. We have over 200 customers. We're moving quite a lot of money on from our platform. Now, we needed this fresh cash to be able to push the speed and velocity on the growth in terms of customer acquisition. And this is the entire thesis of this round. And In terms of numbers, I can share some numbers as well. We raised a round of about $3.5 million.
So like $1 billion in Canadian.
Yeah, hopefully not.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Good for you. Good for you, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. No, we were pretty excited about deploying this capital and of course growing the team and making the product better, but also finding new customers to bring this great of a product that everyone else is enjoying. And if I were to like really pinpoint a few things, fintech in Canada is still very, very new, right? You can pretty much name great fintech companies that have come out of Canada on your hand, right? So it's still new. People still are transacting more so at the B2B level, that people still transacting with their banks, and it's just a matter of like more awareness of what's possible out there. So Canadian businesses are still unaware, and that's what happens every time I hop on a demo and I show them that this is what's possible, and people are like, so how is that possible? And they get very shocked about like that, there's something fishy going on over here. So we need to educate them. And this is not a problem, by the way, in the US, right? We do a demo in the US, and those guys they are aware of technology like this. So it becomes like more of a workflow automation use case rather than actually showing the financial services side of things.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's fantastic. Congratulations. That's huge. And assuming that this will air after the embargo ends, are you able to share any other details as it relates to even like maybe some of the investors and that sort of stuff, or will that still remain confidential after that
No,
embargo comes in?
that would be available in the press release. So we raised this round. So we've been raising capital from US VCs. Even our last round was led by Motivate Venture Capital, and this round is led by Water Tower Ventures out of LA. And of course, our existing investors participated in this round as well, so they doubled down. Motivate invested as well. SAS Ventures also invested. This fund is out of Miami, and then our Canadian angels. There were, my former boss actually was the first check when I left AEC, and he's invested as well. So he doubled down as well. I was like, I'm not going to give you too much allocation because, hey, this is venture.
100%.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, inevitably, I understand because you have to, for so many reasons as it relates to the press release, the investors, the company, kind of getting the message out there, because that's critical as it relates to, generating that momentum for the growth that you guys are about to execute on it. But raising money, as much as it should be celebrated and highlighted for the reasons that I mentioned, it is an obligation as well, right? So
Yeah.
it's real for you guys to be able to execute on that.
Yeah, absolutely. It sort of like, pushes you in that again, if you really think about it, it could be a positive force for some folks who can take the pressure really well. And of course, it's an obligation. You need to be right stewards of the capital that's been given to you, and but more so, and of course, you guys are in this business, so you totally understand, and managing other people's money, you've been doing that for a long time. And although this is a little bit different, but it has the same flavor of responsibility that this capital is given for a specific thesis to be played out. But don't beat yourself too much, because at the end of the day, it is still venture, right? So there is a specific class of risk capital that's available for exactly this. So that's what, if someone else is really like listening about this, don't beat yourself too much about failures that you'll see, because people understand that this is venture, and that risk capital is for you to actually play out your thesis and execute as best as possible.
This episode is brought to you by Bloom Benefits Group. Bloom Benefits is disrupting employee benefits by rethinking the status quo. They provide exceptional customer service while saving you money. Bloom offers group benefits and retirement products, health and wellness accounts, executive benefits, life insurance, and disability and critical illness. Available to companies across Canada, Bloom helps clients save money without interrupting current plans. Check them out at bluebenefits.ca.
Young professionals, families, and entrepreneurs. What makes Zelos Investment Counsel different? Our independence, client focus, and access. Zelos Investment Counsel is independent from banks and brokerages, which ensures clients' best interests are served without corporate conflicts. We are fiduciary portfolio managers with a duty to clients that doesn't exist in the brokerage model. At Zelos Investment Counsel, we exist to care for our clients, and every day we strive to help our clients reach their goals. We provide our clients with access to institutional investment managers and sector specialists through our proprietary investment structure. For more information, book your no obligation meeting today at zelosglobal.com. That's www.zelosglobal.com.
Attention all car owners. Is the winter weather turning your beloved ride into a rusty relic? Fear not, because we've got the solution you've been dreaming of. Crown Rust Protection. Picture this: your car defying the elements, standing strong against rust like a knight in shining armor. Crown Rust Protection is not just a shield, it's an investment in the longevity and resale value of your vehicle. Don't let rust take the wheel. Book your Crown Rust Protection treatment today and let your car embrace its inner superhero. Call now at 403-291-1951 or book your appointment at www.krown.com. Our skilled technicians are ready to give your car the VIP treatment it deserves. Crown Rust Protection, because your car deserves to age like fine wine, not rusty vinegar.
Today's episode is brought to you by Motive, a leading venture builder with over a decade of experience helping corporates and startups build, launch, and scale successful business ventures. Whether you're looking to innovate your business model, develop a game-changing product, or craft a winning go-to-market strategy, Motive is with you every step of the way. Their proven venture building process and technologies help reduce risks and accelerate time to market. Innovation is everywhere. Let's harness it together. Visit motive.digital to learn more. That's Motive spelled M-O-T-I-V.
Really good segue as well too, because I was going to ask you, like, how do you keep it all together now that you've raised all this capital and you've grown a team, and you're making these big moves. It sounds like you're a pretty confident guy, anyways. You've already made some of these bigger moves, and you have the mindset of, like you said, this is venture, and it comes with a significant amount of risk and and volatility, and you believe in yourself. But what's changed in you in this last little process?
I think it's what has changed is that we've learned a lot, right? So there's, of course, I've been talking a lot about all the upswings of our business and momentum has been developing and so on, but there's a lot of learnings and there are a lot of trials that we have to go through as well, and because it's a roller coaster ride. So we had to cut down on our team as well just before this. We have always been believers in finding the right kind of fit for our folks, and sometimes no matter how well you design your hiring process, sometimes it's just you end up with people who may not be the right fit for your team, and you have to be brutal in making these decisions fast enough to be able to like find that right fit with the team. So with AI, that has been really like a crazy trend for us, and we've been using AI as a force multiplier for us in terms of productivity gains. So it's not that I let go people because AI was doing so well. It's more so that companies now are so productive and they're generating a lot of revenue per employee just because of the productivity gains that are possible. But the way that we look at it is that we've seen these downswings as well in how we needed to pivot. We went through a co-founder exit at some point in time as well. We were three co-founders in the beginning, and we've gone through our fair share of downswings in terms of how we needed to pivot the business and what are we doing at this point in time. But that being said, it's a great opportunity, and we are really, really excited about what's coming next for us and what's in store for Finofo. What few things that I can tell you is that Gilbert, I'm not going to be your neighbor anymore any soon. We're going to be moving away from workhouse to a new office, and and really excited for the change of scenery over there as well, although I will miss you. But really excited about expanding the team over there and having a great space right now. If you might have seen, like, it's truly startup culture, and we have a tiny room and we have 8 people in this room, to be honest. And that's just when I look into it, it's like, we calculated the square footage in the room that we're in. It's 215 square feet, and the space that we move in is 4,000 square feet now, right? So it's quite an upgrade, but we are lucky to be in this position to be able to enjoy a little bit and then change our environment for getting that productivity gain for us.
Yeah, great. No, congratulations. I'll have to check out the new office space once you guys move. But
Absolutely.
how many team members do you guys have right now? And then how many will you add as a result of rolling this out?
So we went through, like, we were about 6 to 8 people up until November, and we went up to almost 15 people, and we had to cut through, and now we're back to 11 people right now, but we're going to be adding at least another 6 people in the coming months.
And any particular positions you're going to be looking for? Just
Yeah,
given.
so we're hiring in sales, we're hiring in product, we're hiring in engineering. Yeah, really excited, and we all work on site in Calgary, and has been our theme and motto since the beginning. And of course, we started remote, but ever since we moved to Calgary, there was a clear intent and purpose that the reason we are moving to Calgary is because we want to work in person, and that's people enjoy working with us. It's a great team. They all we really care about each other, and it's a lot of respect of the team members. That it's beautiful. We just did an offsite. The level of comfort that this team has with each other is just quite a thing.
That's awesome.
That's got to be through intention, and obviously with your background in hospitality and hotels and stuff like that as well too. Like, have you kind of honed some of that and bringing that culture in to your company?
Yeah, I would say that, I've always believed in rewarding people with food and beverage. So that either it's probably because my co-founder and I, like, we both love to eat and drink, and that's what has. But we have learned that, it's not something that everyone really enjoys that much. So we are also learning there are other ways of rewarding folks. But yeah, in terms of bringing that hotel culture and so on, I would say it's a lot of learning for me personally, because you're working with very sharp minds over here. You're learning with folks who are developing something that's complex, right? So the app that we have, it's not like, a messaging platform where you could just release something, and if your message doesn't deliver, that's fine, right? Like, nothing has been lost. But if the numbers shift up in our app, this is a financial app, so a lot of trust is placed on us in term for our customers. So it's a lot. Although we have built a lot of product, but it has to be really well tested. And so we're working with folks who have that capability to be diligent, but also very fast in terms of developing features, pushing as much product out there, really iterating on the feedback that we've been receiving. And I'm lucky to have a team like this.
That's great. It sounds like a very exciting time in your life and the company's evolution. But really appreciate this conversation. It was so great to learn so much more about you. Even though we've been in the same office space for a bit, I love these conversations because you always discover so much about an individual through these types of questions and conversations. But wanted to turn the floor over to you just to, point any of our listeners to resources, websites, social media handles, anything that you want to kind of draw your attention to. The floor is yours.
Absolutely. And thanks for having me, you both. It's been a pleasure talking to you. And um, like, we are in a very growth stage, listeners. And if there are any listeners listening in terms of people who want to know more about Finofo, our website is finofo.com, finofo.com. And we will be, as you might have already heard, that we'll be hiring pretty soon. So if there are some very talented people who are not afraid of picking up a great challenge, and people who want to work in person with a great team, and who are looking to really, really build something great, in financial services sector, then absolutely check out the open roles on finofo.com/company/manifesto, and looking forward to hearing from you all.
Wish you all the best. I think that was amazing. Thank you for sharing and being so open and vulnerable and really walking us through the journey. You and Gilbert know each other. You and I have very briefly met that one day we had the event there, but it has been a pleasure, honestly, to learn more about you and learn about, what you've been through and where you're going. Just want to wish you the best of luck and just congratulate you again on everything you've gone through and continue to persevere through. So congrats.
Oh, thanks for having me over here. And you guys are doing great, to be honest. I've heard, no, I can't say that I've heard all the 147 episodes, but I listened to a few. So yeah, love hearing the local stories, to be honest. And so doing a great job over there.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks for the support, and coming on as a guest is huge. So we're really happy to kind of highlight your story.
Thank you again.
Thank you again for joining us for another episode of Between Two Dots by Intention Media. This podcast is co-hosted by myself, Gilbert Bong, and Hafiz Mita. If you enjoyed this podcast, please rate and review wherever you listen.